Greetings and salutations, everyone. I hope everyone is doing well, and welcome to today's upload. Before we jump into it, a couple quick links. As many of you know, I rely on Patreon, PayPal, channel membership, and the merch to help the channel to continue to grow and go. Links to Patreon, PayPal, and channel membership is in the description below. Merch displayed directly under the video. Also, Dogman Frightening Encounters, Volume 1 through 3, the audiobook versions. They were written and researched by Tom Lyons, narrated and produced by me, Jeff Nadolny. Those audiobooks, they're available on Audible, Amazon, and iTunes, links to which are also in the description as well. And finally, last but definitely not least, if you'd really like to help support the channel to continue to grow and go, simply subscribe. It does not cost a cent. Click the like button, takes half a second. If you don't want to miss out on any of the informative uploads that I put out daily, click the bell icon, and folks, please leave a comment and share the video. Why? Well, because all of these things, they really do help the channel to continue to grow and go. They definitely do matter, and they are appreciated. And with that, I have taken far too much of your time. Let's jump into today's upload, shall we? All right, folks, so today's upload is coming to us from a subscriber's friend. I didn't ask them if they subscribed, but I'm assuming they may have because they shared their experience with us. But this person that I spoke with last night, his name is Todd, and he is very good friends with a subscriber who has shared a couple different times on the channel, and his dad, JR, and Robert Sr. Robert Sr. is friends with Todd's dad and has been since they were youngins. JR and Todd, same way. They both practically grew up together, even though they didn't live in the same area or same town. Both lived in New Mexico and both have the same interests. Todd, very dedicated to hiking, mountain climbing, and the only thing different is he has gone to areas areas in the country to ice climb, mountain ice climbing and such, which JR has never done. Both have had some pretty strange experiences in the great state of New Mexico. Now, many of you know that I have a fascination with this state. You have a lot of things going on. I truly believe that there is a deep underground facility or city under the top part of New Mexico, the lower part of Colorado. And to me, it makes a lot of sense. We have Taos, which since the 90s, people have heard a strange humming noise. I believe that humming noise is from another facility in that region, possibly connected by tubes and kind of these shuttles. I've heard people talk about. I've never talked to the person, but I've heard someone say that their husband had gotten sick because they worked in or on some sort of underground tunnel / train near Taos. I don't believe the humming that people hear is from necessarily that shuttle system, because the humming is almost a constant. It's not just this kind of there then gone. So I wouldn't doubt that someone did get sick working underground if it is true. And I'm not saying it isn't because I was not there and I do not know. You have Dulce, obviously. Dulce is pretty much ground zero for the deep underground facilities in New Mexico. And Gila, the cave dwellings, national forest there, Los Alamos. I mean, you can just keep going. And this state has Roswell. It has it all. Like you don't have, on top of them, the government performing multitudes of nuclear testing. Why is that? Probably because that's where the alien agenda or alien kind of whatever you want to call it is there. And I spoke with Todd for quite some time this afternoon or yesterday afternoon, and we had a pretty interesting conversation. So I'm going to share all of that and his experience. His experience happened in a location in between a kind of an unincorporated town called Vallecito and the Ortega Mountains. So we're going to jump into his information, his experience. There is and was a military involvement there. He almost didn't want to share because he does not believe anyone will believe him. And JR's father, Robert Sr., spoke with him and said, listen, you don't know any of Jeff's listeners. So it's not like, you're going to be persecuted and belittled personally. So why not share? And he said, I doubt Jeff wouldn't believe you. Just talk to him. Let him feel you out. And that's what happened. And it is quite the eventful experience. He actually calls it an event instead of an experience. And I believe that if what he's saying is in fact 100%, and I only say that because I wasn't there. The only experience I know without a certainty that happened is my own. I take people at their word though, and especially after talking to them for quite some time. So let's jump into it. So if none of you, I'm assuming the majority of you are familiar with JR and Robert. Just a quick backstory for them and how I got to meet with Todd. JR is Robert Sr.'s son, and they live in Silver City, New Mexico. And JR is very, very athletic in the using that term towards hiking, mountain climbing, anything outdoorsy. So is Todd. His father was and is, as age progresses, Bob Sr. is as well. So JR had been in the Gila National Forest and had heard some strange noises, witnessed a small pack of crawlers. I say small because I don't know how large these packs can get. Obviously, they live underground. So they may get really large. We don't know. I have my own opinion. I think that by judging on things that I've heard and research that I've done, I believe they were created by the Draconian or Draco, which were created by the Draconian, and the Gray, the alien Gray, possibly by using human DNA and such. So I think that these things are an aggressive cryptid, but quite possibly society based, not just pack. I think that if there is, like JR saw this small pack, and I say small because it was, once again, I don't know, about 8 of them, and attacking a Dogman, pretty much just towering over these little creatures. Not little, but compared to the Dogman, these things were like 6.5 feet, maybe guessing his own words. If I had to guess, I would say max 150 to 200 pounds, somewhere around there. Even being that slender, but they are very, very tall as well. Dogman, obviously we know how big they can get. So these things were just pretty much gang attacking it. And for lack of a better word, it did smash a few, but as soon as some or one of them had gotten hurt, these crawlers, they would take it out of the fight, actually bring the carcass or the hurt crawler back into the cave. Eventually these things got the better of the Dogman and ended up killing it, and somehow squeezed it through this little opening in the Gila Mountains, or Gila National Forest Mountains area. As he's getting out of there, he's hearing these things not only on ground, but in the trees. They were trailing him in the trees. They were using communication, chattering and kind of whoops. Not like a Bigfoot whoop, but more or less high pitched. So he did get out of there safely. Robert Jr. Sr. is friends with a sheriff and a sheriff deputy. He had heard some events in that area of Silver City, of two mine security guards one night witnessed a Dogman come out of the wooded desert-like area with what they thought was a child. And at the end of it all, it was not a child. They had chose to defend this child, and then they saw, a group of crawlers chasing after the Dogman that was taking this crawler. It had, hurt it and was bringing it to wherever, maybe for consumption, who knows. But needless to say, the Dogman got run off by the crawlers and by a couple shots. But the crawlers then trapped them in their truck and then in their security building. So that's how I got to meet Bob Sr. and JR. And then obviously Todd has a very similar skill set to JR. So he was out hiking and camping on his own. He solo camps and hikes quite often, just like JR does. If they are together, or if they are planning on being together, they will gladly go with each other. So, like I said, that's how I got to get in touch with Todd. Todd shared the experience. Now, the information that Todd and I had talked about was he believes and has seen some strange stuff in the wilds of New Mexico. This was probably the most strangest, and there was government involvement. So he was in this area, Vallecito, which is a small unincorporated town in Rio Arbia County. It's northwest, or Dulce is northwest. Taos is southeast of it. So it's kind of smack dab in the middle of just high strangeness, Twilight Zone. It's I would have to say New Mexico, the geography of New Mexico is absolutely stunning. Truly beautiful. Utah, Montana, all those areas out west. New Mexico has just this interesting kind of vibe to it. Desert-like and mountain-like at the same time. Just really cool. It reminds me of like spaghetti westerns. So we were talking, and he asks, he said, well, I think what JR saw was, they probably are communal or society-based. And he believes that the military has not, or the government has not even tried to do what they've done in the past with Bigfoot and Dogman, and the creature Victor called werewolves, which he said the government called them. So that's what I go off of, a non-transforming creature. And we were talking about how he doesn't believe the government has even attempted to, because he knows just on things he's heard and seen his own, that these things were created by what I said, what my theory is, the Draco, as some sort of defense mechanism, whether it be humans or cryptid, or even possibly alien/demonic. You have a small community of these creatures. Let's say there's some sort of alien-like uprising, two factions of these aliens, the Gray, the Draco, which they work together, and then some other kind of strange alien/demon comes out of the portal with an attempt to take over whatever is going on. Even if it is a demon, you have 100 of these crawlers attacking a demonic creature. It would definitely give the other creature or /alien time to either retreat or come up with a better defense plan. So yeah, I mean, it only makes sense that these things would be almost the last leg of security for these alien, gray, and reptilian Draco. He was 23 at the time of his experience, and he was pretty close to the region of Carson National Forest. But like I said, he was more south of Vallecito. He had parked on the 111. He had gone out on a Thursday, and he was solo camping and hiking, something he's done numerous times, like JR has done in his life. Practically from the time he got out of his car, things were not copacetic. He jumps out of his car, grabs his gear out of the trunk, and immediately he leaves kind of like a note on the inside of the window, so if any law enforcement came by, they could at least say, hey, I went camping, hiking at this date, I plan on returning at this date, whatnot. Gets his pack, puts his pack on, his hiking poles, and instantly feels like there's about 1,000 eyes on him. He can't pinpoint where they are, but there's enough to make him feel uncomfortable. He proceeds to walk out into the wilderness area, heading towards the Rio Vallecito River. What he was going to do is there's a kind of a ridge that runs along that area, and it fluctuates in sea level height, but he planned on just kind of staying up in that region and camping, just getting away for a couple of days. Now, he gets out there and he starts to hear something or someone following him, literally trailing his every move, and not from the deep wilderness, almost like it's right close to, but just far enough away to where you can't see it visibly with the naked eye. So he's been in this is not a new region of him camping. But this is a new experience that he's feeling. He's never had any kind of bad vibes or whatnot. He gets out and he gets to the location where he is going to set up camp and stay for the couple of days. He's going to use this area as his base camp. He's carrying a pretty decent pack because he's got the food that he's going to bring with him. He's got a lot of dehydrated food, a lot of jerky and such, granolas and stuff that doesn't weigh a lot, but stuff that can sustain you and your energy. A life straw so he can get water and such. And he gets his base camp set up. It's around 4:30, 5 o'clock. I don't know when dusk is in New Mexico in September, but I'm assuming it's got to be getting a little darker than from the time he got out of his car. He starts his fire and immediately starts to he would normally not start his fire, but there was something off, and it just in his head, start the fire. Just start a fire. Build a large enough kind of circle with any kind of natural stone that you can find. Trench it out so you can cook and everything, or boil water. And so that's what he does, and then he starts to gather as much wood as possible. And this is something that is instinctually, telling him to do now. So he gets it all done before dark hits. Once again, this is not an area new to him. This is an area where he's camped before, and never had any kind of issue. So he's set up. He's got his blanket outside to where he can just sit on a log. He didn't bring a pack chair or anything with him, but he has his back exposed because of where he had to set his tent up. So he immediately, as it is getting darker and darker, starts to hear these kind of strange walking around. It sounds very heavy. There is what sounds to be like growls, but he's not sure. Obviously he is now. He gets set up, hears all this, and immediately when he gets that feeling and hears the first kind of growl, he kind of jumps up, turns his flashlight on. He's got a pretty decent size lumen light, and kind of brightens the air. Doesn't see anything. Doesn't even see any eye shine. He doesn't see any kind of small wildlife. Nothing. And he's just, at this point, he's like, my mind's playing tricks on me, but it doesn't make sense because I've been in this area before. It's not like it's a new area for me, and I've never had these feelings. But how am I going to ignore this growl? How in fact is that, something that isn't or can be imagined. So he doesn't see anything, and he kind of brushes it off. He then he's getting tired. He's sitting by his fire. He's got his headlamp on. He's reading a book, which I found interesting because, he and I guess it makes sense that you'd bring a book if you don't have anybody with you to talk, but definitely a new camping thing that I'm probably going to try on my own, just to get away, grab a book and have the real world not be near you. So he hears what sounds like, and where he's set up, he's kind of on a hill. He hears smaller rocks, kind of being kicked down by whatever is walking up this, embankment that he's got set for himself. Boom, flashlight. He's hearing it, he's ignoring it, but he's not ignoring it. He's got his book in his hand. He's just sitting there looking at his book. He had stopped reading, obviously. He's just looking and pretending to read. And it is very close, spotlights the area. And all he sees, nothing in front of him. He half expected to see a mountain lion. And when he didn't see anything, he kind of stood up and looked around, then saw off in the distance, probably about 600 feet. So with that 200 yards, he saw these kind of yellowish, like a dark yellow, kind of bright orange glow or eyes, looking directly at the light. It is not focused on him, the fire. It's focused on the light, almost like a bug would be to a light. His exact term, because he has never, usually if there's an animal around, he will, or anyone can, scare it off with a quick flashlight and a loud noise. None of which worked. He then grabs his pistol, sets it on the side of him, and he has bear spray as well. So he's just sitting there, and he did grab his pistol out of his tent, not nonchalantly, but almost purposely with authority, like, hey, you see what I got in my hands? This isn't a game. And kind of sits back down, sets his pistol on his side, and he just proceeds to pretend like he's reading. And about every 30 seconds to a minute, he would shine that light on where he saw those eyes. And about the third time he did was when all of a sudden he's witnessing this, because he turned that light on, and boom, the eye shine was much closer to him. He could see it. This kind of flash. You've got your flashlight. This is the best way to describe it. You have your flashlight. You are shining it downhill. Around that beam of light is illuminated, but not by much. You can see some sort of figure in it. At that point in time, whatever it was appeared to be a quadruped. And as you're looking on that, debating on taking a shot, he witnesses this kind of like a shadow move in front of the light beam, and instantly hears this shriek. So it was that quick. It was boom, light on the creature that is now pretty much at the bottom of the embankment, and this very loud, very loud shriek from this creature that he couldn't decipher what it was. But the shadow, gone. And he witnesses the eyes just gone. Like, light's there, he catches that shadow, and then as this thing got in the light, it was almost like the light kind of vanished into it or whatever. And then just there's this loud kind of painful shriek, and it's gone. He can't make out any detail of other than it was large, and because of the way it ran, because of the position of the flashlight, the first whatever that he saw before the animal or creature, because once again he doesn't know what that was, went through, clearly bigger than the creature, and what appeared to be bigger than him. So key important thing is what he said, Jeff, remember this part for the end of all this, because I don't want you at the end to not believe my experience. He said, it's taken me this long to share it with anyone other than my family, my immediate family, like my dad, my mother. He said, there's 2 siblings I haven't shared this with. He said, I've only shared it with one of my other siblings. He said, I've shared it with JR, and JR shared it with his dad. His dad had talked to me about it, and that's where you pop in, Jeff. But he said, as that light beam is cast upon that eye shine, which was not small in any means at all. It was not small, because he's judging on height from his angle looking down, that the eyes would have been somewhere between 4.5 feet in height, and he's pretty sure it was quadruped. He couldn't see much other than those eyes, just on its position. So when this shadow comes from one side to the next in seconds, like microseconds, it was so fast. He said it looked conical. It almost like a Christmas tree. It was wider at the base, but not all the way. He said it was very strange. And it hit that animal, and boom, the instant like screech of fright and pain all in one. And he said that it was so fast that he said for a split second, I'm watching all of this go down. He said, and for a split second, those golden orange eyes, just as it's running, whatever this is, running towards that animal or creature, it turned its head just like it wasn't even aware of this thing. And then boom, it happens. And it's gone. So he's like, what the, so fast. So he jumps up, got his pistol in his hand, and proceeds to do kind of a sweeping motion from wherever that went back around. And he said he goes, Jeff, I didn't realize this until sharing this with you. He said, probably because I'm comfortable. And I'm not worked up, because when I share this with any family members, or even when I talk to Bob Sr., he said I was kind of worked up, thinking that, this guy's going to doubt me. What am I going to do if my dad's best friend says I'm full of shit? He said I didn't have any fear. He said I didn't do a full 360 kind of look-see. He said, so it was almost like the fear that I had prior to behind me was gone. But I kept making sure that whatever was that way, I could get a sight on, or a bead on, and make sure, nothing was coming at me. He said, but for that small period of time, that small period of time from the first contact to when he heard this thing howl, he said, I felt calm. I felt peace. I sat down, I put my pistol in my lap, safety's on, I'm reading my book, and he said, I just zonked out. He said, and many of us have had this occur, where we're watching TV, or we're reading, or doing something. I've never had it camping, but where you're so tired and you just do out like a light for 30 seconds to maybe a couple of minutes. But then when you wake up, you're startled. You're like, whoa, how long have I been out? And more tired as well. So that happens, and he just kind of pops up, and he's like, huh. And he realizes that it was only a couple of minutes that had gone by. And then maybe, and he starts reading again, but he's like, I gotta stay awake. This is, I can't fall asleep. And as he's thinking, I can't fall asleep, he hears this howl. And it was like almost like a taunt to him, he felt like, because it wasn't communicating with whatever, because it was too short of a howl. But almost like, rubbing it in his face. And he's like just shocked. Thing with the howl is, with that howl, he said, it was almost like it was a strange, not a canine howl. It was very similar to a wolf or coyote or dog. But what was weird about it was that it almost sounded like it could communicate with words. There was something behind the howl that just felt unnatural, but almost intelligent at the same time. And he's just like, what the hell? Stands up again. Phew, flashlight. All sense of whatever done. And he sits back down and he waits. And he's just like, I'm just going to sit for a little bit. Starts to get tired again. Crawls in his tent. Zonks out. Before he crawled in his tent, he put more wood on the fire. Got it stoking again. And he put the dew cloth down. So when he was in his tent, it was just the screen was open. And the second he crawled into that sleeping bag, he was out like a light. So some time goes by, and not a lot of time. So at this point, he hears footsteps. He can hear pebbles, getting kicked when someone's walking on that kind of terrain. And he looks out the window kind of side-eyed. And he realizes that it's still kind of dark out. What the hell's going on? Is that thing back? And he looks at his watch and realizes that it's like 7:15 a.m. And he's got his pistol in his hand. and he can hear the footsteps getting closer. And then there's a call out. New Mexico Federal Park Ranger. Is anyone in that tent? Answer, out now. And he's laying there. He's like, what the hell? It's 7:15. Puts the pistol down and says, yeah, hang on 1 second. I'll be right out. Unzips the fly, gets out, puts his shoes on quick, instead of flip-flops. And is greeted by this park ranger, probably 20 feet away. This is the odd, it gets so weird. 20 feet away. He said, I look at him and I said, how are you? How are you, sir? I'm being respectful. I realize that he's not too much older than me. But he is 20 feet away. Not real close, but not really far. And within seconds, this park ranger, seconds, is right in his face. Boom. Maybe a foot. Personal space. Unobserved. And he's looking at the guy, and the park ranger, he's looking at him, and he's like, what the fuck, And in his head, he's like, this is not a good trip, because first feeling I had, never had that happen. I've been out here on my own 6 or 7 different times, and I've never had an issue. So first time, put his pack on from the car, boom, that feeling of 1,000 eyes just watching you. Not really, but that's his term. Whatever that creature was, whatever was behind me, the howl, this, and that, and now this park ranger coming out of nowhere. And he catches this weird stink. This almost like chemically biological smell. This just almost like someone was dipped in some sort of not bleach or vinegar, but just something very strong that he could not identify. And he's stepped back away from him a little bit, but that distance, every time he goes to step back, that park ranger closes that distance to where he is only a foot away. And he's like, listen, we got some calls about your car being down there on the 111. And he's like, in his head, he's going, no one called. No one's ever called. My car's been parked there. There's a note in my car. I left a note on the dash so people could see it in the... And he says that. And he said, I didn't see your note. I didn't see it, He said, anyway, we got a couple calls late last night. So I figured, I'd come up and check on you. And he's like, okay, well, thank you, sir. And, have a good rest of your day. I'm good. And the ranger turns, and he's still standing there, and he's kind of watching him leave. And the park ranger turns right back around so quick. Again, boom. Was that movie when that guy's looking for his butler, and the butler's right there. I think it's a scary movie or whatever. That quick. And again, foot distance. He said, I gotta cite you. Your fire, I know you were sleeping because I woke you up. And that fire is smoldering. He said, I bet you if I put a couple of sticks on there, it'd catch right back up. And he does. Boom. Fire starts right back up. And he's just like, what is going on? Is someone playing a practical joke on me? All of this weird shit has been happening since the first 10 minutes of my hiking trip, my camping trip. He cites him and then leaves. Doesn't say a lick, Todd Todd's like, have a good one. And he's just gone. Like, not that quick and not that fast out of sight, but, enough to... And he's just standing there like, I don't even know what just happened. He's like, this is like Twilight Zone. And he goes in, gets, himself situated, and he's up for good now. It's 7:30. But he's like, he said, Jeff, he said, I've been there so many times and I've never even seen a park ranger up there. He said, it's so weird that there would even be, walking that deep out to get to me at that time. When did he park his car? At 6:30 to take that, hour walk in? And he's just beside himself. He can't make sense of it. He's standing there and he's like, all right, well, we'll figure this out and spend the rest of the day doing whatever. Oh, that's another thing. The ranger asked him how long he was going to be there. How long is your stay going to be up here? And, he just said 3 to 4 days. Not long, but just enough time to just get away. And then, poop, gone. So he gets everything situated, gets himself kind of, puts the citation in his bag and stuff, and gets his breakfast going, starts his coffee, boils the water. And he's just thinking about how odd everything's been. And just maybe he should cut it short. Maybe from day one, when those, eye shines, or not eye shine, but it felt like 1,000 eyes were on me. He said, maybe I shouldn't even stayed. He's like, I'll see how I feel. And he goes down, or he gets all set, ate his breakfast. And he's like, I'll just hike down to Ortega. I'll see how close I get to Ortega Mountains east. Apparently there's 2 Ortega Mountains, west and east. And he starts to leave his campsite. And he's probably maybe a mile out from his campsite. And he's just walking the trails, not too groomed, but not too bad. And he hears that walking again. He hears, something trailing him. And he's like, you can't do this. This is, nuts. Turns around, nothing's there. Looks to the sides, nothing's there. And the walking stopped instantly. There wasn't like a half a step or anything. Because he said, I tried that. He said, I walked for like 30 seconds and then I missed a step. He goes, I actually held my foot up in the air. He said, and I heard that foot go down. He said, and I knew, right there, I knew someone or something was watching me. He said, I instantly yelled out, hey, this is Todd, last name. Is that the park ranger? And nothing. No noise, nothing. And he's like, all right, this is weird. He said, I'll walk a little bit more and do the same thing again. And he proceeds to walk, and instantly he does the same thing. Boop, and he hears the footstep. Boom, breaking branches and leaves as it hits the ground. And he turns around, pulls out his pistol, and just kind of, very gun conscious, holds it and does a perimeter sweep quick. As stating, his name and his pistol is drawn in case it is a human. In case this is a human, I have my pistol drawn. Show yourself. And he sits there for a couple seconds and he hears running. going away from him. But it's bipedal, but it's not what a human would sound like running. It sounds like it's going straight through trees, like branches are hitting it, that kind of noise when you hear something just blowing through the woods. I've heard that sound before. You guys, if you've watched the video of me where Tom Mezek disappeared, the day I'm reading that Yakima experience in Washington, I'll never forget the time. I'll never forget this ever. I'm narrating the Yakima experience from Washington. I'm sitting on a boulder. I got my camera in front of me, and the fucking woods behind me just blows up. You could hear branches. I'm getting cold chills right now telling you this. I grab my camera, I grab my bag, I throw my bag over my shoulder, and I start running. I look behind me and I see whatever. I don't even know what it was. It was just this little brown, black lump going into the woods. Could have been a bear, it wasn't a bear, but I just say that because I don't know. He stops and he turns back around and he starts heading towards his camp. And he's walking into his camp and you can clearly tell that someone had been in his camp. His tent's open. The fire pit is not smoldering anymore. It is out. Looks like someone had dumped a bucket of water on it. And he's just kind of like looking. He goes in his pack, checks everything's there. So it was like someone opened the door just to look, because by then he had put his dew cloth up. And he's like, now I gotta go. He's like, I gotta go. Day 2 out of a 4-day trip. Great. He proceeds to pick all his stuff up and starts to head out. Now, this is where everything starts to get real strange. As he's walking out, he half expects to hear the walking accompany him on his way out. So, same hike in, out, 45 minutes to an hour. And when he's walking out, there's a clearing, maybe 5 minutes from the road. But there's also a entrance at this clearing where you can veer, you can turn and go. And he's walking out and he can hear talking. And he stops for a second because he can hear clearly there's 2, maybe 3 people talking before he can get to any kind of vantage point to see. That at that point, he makes a decision that he's not going to go out. He's not going to bust through and just be like, because he wants to know who's there. So he puts his pack down because it's heavy as hell. It's got his small tent in it. It's got his sleeping bag, any kind of food that he's got with him. Everything that he carries is in it. And puts it down and walks back. And he sees 4 armed U.S. soldiers. He can't make out where they're from, who they are. But he can tell that that's not some sort of drill or exercise, because there is any kind of precaution. Magazine is in the there's no kind of orange tip or whatnot on the M4s. and he's just looking and he's watching. And he's like, all right, this is weird. This is weird. And he sees something that just where that walk-in is, it's actually not a walk-in. It's large enough to fit. That clearing was done by a skid steer. So he's just sitting back in the woods looking, and he sees the four guys, and they come to almost an attention because he can hear now an engine coming in. And he's like, what the hell? He's like, this is so not kosher, you know? Like, this is not what's going on. And it's a kind of an army convoy truck, kind of a supply truck. And it's got a trailer behind it. And it's loud as heck. And he's like, all right, this is weird. The soldiers kind of spread out, and the vehicle does a circle in the clearing to head back out. Parks, nose is heading right towards the road. Trailer is, headed facing toward the woods. And they open the door of the trailer, and what he sees was just so strange to him. It made no sense. And this is where he said, Jeff, from day one till that park ranger coming up to me and me smelling him, he said, I can still smell the smell. And it's a sick, very sick, pungent, chemically, just body odor smell. There's just something off with it. It wasn't body odor, but, there's just something very strong. And he's just like, shit, what am I going to do? I'll watch this, whatever's happening. Sees the soldiers open the back part of the trailer. And what he sees is two full-grown dogmen run out of the back of that trailer. And he's sitting there and he's watching this and he's like, what the fuck was that? He's like, what was that? Because as they ran out, they started to run quadruped. But as they hit the ground, they stood up bipedally, right into the woods. And he's like, holy shit. Pulls his pistol out because he's like, all right, that was... And he's shaking. He's literally shaking. And he was shaking as he was telling me. You could hear the kind of like the stutter in his voice. So what the soldiers did next, he said, don't judge me. He said, I don't know exactly what I saw, and you will realize why I'm saying this. But whatever the thing that was in the back of that truck, it resembled the two dogmen, very similar. He said, two of those soldiers got up in the back of that truck. He said one had the rifle kind of pointed down. He said there was some sort of cage, some sort of box. And as the soldier got to it, he said, I waited to see if he was going to open the door. Because if he did, he goes, whatever was in there would have just trampled him. Because he had no place to back up to. You have an armed soldier right aside of you, off to the side. And he watches the soldier pull this thing, this like slide this top part out the cage, No sooner did he slide it and put it down that it was a split second. This thing just shot up into the air. And he's watching it and he's like, confused is not even a word that he used. He said, at that point, he said, I believed we were living in a simulation. He said, because when that thing shot up into the air, he said, I watched it. He said, and as it just shot up, it had this kind of like a wrap around it. He said, when it got in the air, it opened and there were wings. And he's like, I'm looking at it, and its face and its body structure resembled the two dogmen that ran out of the back of the truck. And as that thing just shot up in the air and opened its wings and flew or glided, he watches the soldiers pack it up, and he can hear faintly something said about the mission was a success. He doesn't know if they said mission, but he made out success and let the head guys know. Professor was actually stated, the word professor. Let him know that, his project was a success. And he stops and he's like, project, success. And he could hear that there was more being said, but he couldn't make out all of it. And then he heard a voice change on the radio. And it wasn't a powerful voice, deep voice. This was a kind of flimsy, just a spineless voice. And he heard, did it fly? Whatever you do, don't shoot at it. It will kill you all. And he heard that, and he's looking up because he's like, okay, I'm not supposed to be here. They just got orders to leave. Whatever it is will rip me apart if it sees me move. And he just freezes right there. Hey, buddy. The trucks, in a couple of seconds or minutes, pull out, gone. And he's walking back to his pack. And he starts to think about when that thing jumped into the air. He said, I don't know if it jumped or if it flew. I don't see how it would have flown without its wings up, so it must have jumped. And as it came out, it had that kind of strange conical, and that's when the wings shot out. And he said, I instantly thought about that frickin' shadow from last night, the night before. He said, how that looked. It looked so identical to... He waited no longer than 5 minutes until he couldn't hear the motor or the engine run. And he had maybe 10-15 minutes. All he had to do was go through the clearing and not very much longer to the trail that led to his car. After that 5 minutes hit, he took off running. He had his pistol in his hand. He had his heavy ass pack, but he's pointing it, his pistol towards the woods. He just keeps looking up. And he gets to right at the entrance, or the exit, the entrance/exit, and he stops and he kind of peeks around. And he goes into the woods and he peeks out. And he's in the woods, so like it's not the trail that he was just on. His pack is catching on everything, but what is he going to do? He wants to make sure that whoever those were, he gets out. Because he pushed through purposely because he realized that the back window of his vehicle was smashed out. And he runs out, looks at the car. The car is unlocked. It was locked. The back window is smashed. The hood of the vehicle is raised a little. All his paperwork has gone through and left. Like, hey, we're looking through your shit, buddy. What else you got in here? Kind of puts it like, holy shit. And then realizes his hood's open. Goes around, opens the hood. Battery's disconnected. Connects the batteries, connects the cables to the battery. Jumps in, starts his car. Hits reverse, boom, gone. On his way towards his home, he comes up to where, on this road, he comes right up to that military vehicle with a trailer. And he sees in the side of the trailer what looked like some sort of gun. It looked very similar to a radar detector being held out and facing the woods. Almost like it was tracking whatever these creatures were, which we know as Dogman, but it wasn't tracking above, just on the side. He slows his vehicle down. He's not in a rush. He doesn't want any headaches. But he's realizing that silhouette that he saw the night before was identical to however that thing jumped or flew out. Gone. Identical. Like, he slows down and the truck then turns off one way and he's got to proceed to go straight. And as he's going by that road, that truck is now pulled over to the side and just right there, parked. He does get home. His father, his mother were not expecting him 2 days early. So he's practically gone for a day and a half. His dad can tell that he's upset about something and forces it out of him. Tells his dad. Some time goes by. He talks to JR, his best friend. He's already aware of JR's experience. But part of Todd, at that point, prior to what he had just seen, didn't really believe JR's experience. Best friend, grew up together, like camped, fished, hiked, rode bikes. And JR heard it. He told his dad. Robert Sr. told him, check this out. Played my video of Robert Sr. and Robert Jr.'s experiences. And it was, that's when Sr. said, go talk to Jeff. I don't know. I spoke to him after, I was like, listen, he said, well, that Victor guy talked about that breeding program, right? And I was like, yeah. I said, but he never said anything about like a genetic manipulation to create something different. I'm like, they weren't creating these things. They were using ones that were in existence and harnessing them to do their work. Whatever. Could that thing have been genetically created? I've heard of other experiences throughout my years of researching, and there was one where a guy in Florida had an experience, I believe it was a dead end, and saw UFO land and witnessed dog-headed creatures with wings come out of the craft. There's been a few other ones, I think. I believe there's one in the LBL. If I'm not mistaken, there's one, and I shared it 3 weeks ago, where someone saw, and they actually said, Dogman, was it a demon? Because it looked identical to a Dogman, except that there were, wings on this thing. Are they doing genetic coding? I mean, obviously we know they are. We know all of these, facilities create. I hate bringing that book up all the time, but Skinwalker at the Pentagon talks about genetic. There's a Dulce Wars. This book talks about genetic manipulation by the government. The Ultimate Deception, Commander X. Commander X is Bill Cooper. Talks about it. This book by Bill Cooper also talks about it. Genetic manipulation in labs, not only in Dulce, but in other labs. I wasn't there. I could hear this guy's voice, and what he was sharing with me was obviously troubling for him. So I believe him. I don't know what he saw, but I know that there are other accounts of people seeing some sort of flying creature that looked like a Dogman. And once again, I wasn't there. So I'm taking him at his word just because I've heard of other experiences similar to that. Just because there's these 3 books that I've shown you, and probably a couple others up there. That David Icke book probably does too. That the genetic, these facilities are creating things. And they're not creating them, they're not creating Bigfoot, they're not creating Dogman, but they are manipulating them. They're manipulating the genetics to make something more, to make more of a powerful weapon. You won't have to move it. You obviously, it can have its own fast locomotion rather than a running one. It can go in and do things. Victor tells us that they use them in wars or in kind of like battles or whatever. So they could go in silently into a facility or town or whatnot and proceed to quietly go in and covertly do their mission. Who knows? All I know is this stuff is real. These events are happening daily. We are barely scratching the surface. You know, people talk about end of days. I think we've been at the end of days. I say this all the time. We are at the beginning of the end of days. But the end of days isn't just going to be like, 4 days straight. No, it's years. If you think about time and how time works, it could be 100 years. End of days could be 100 years, 200 years, 300 years. But I believe that we are getting closer to, but not right to that point of it being the end of days right now. We are in there. We are feeling the effects. There are these two other books and these are how they come from blueplanetproject.com. But I know they talk about laboratory genetic manipulation in the Montauk Project one. Once again, you can get this at the blueplanetproject.com. Montauk Project talks about it, and then the Secrets of Dulce, which is different than the Dulce book. This talks about it as well. This is real. This shit is real, and it's scary. And it does connect. It connects to the Bible. The connection is the end of days. When our government, our armies manipulate things that God created. I'm not saying God created Dogman, but what he did create is humans, and we know in Dulce, New Mexico, in that deep underground facility on a level called Nightmare Hall, the extraterrestrial / demons were genetically manipulating humans, and we were created in God's likeness. So when that happens, we know it's almost, we're almost there. It's a silent war going on right now, but I believe someday, hopefully, my kids don't have to witness it, but probably as they're older. Anyway, with that, thank you all for supporting the channel. Thank you, Todd. I appreciate it. I appreciate you sharing your experience. And I hope when you hear me say, I'm not doubting you. I'm not doubting you at all. I just wasn't there. Do I believe it happened? Yeah. From how you told me, everything that you told me, and everything that I've read and know and heard, I believe you, my friend. Just be safe. With that, please, thank you for supporting the channel. Stay safe, happy, healthy, and ever vigilant, keeping an eye on our children, pets, family, and friends. These creatures are real. These events are happening and have happened right now. Share this information with the people that you love and care about, because it may just save their lives someday. By making them aware of what the hell is going on out there, we are saving people's lives. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter who it is, who's sharing the information. As long as the information is getting shared, people are being saved. Another way they are being saved is when they turn their life over to Jesus Christ, our Savior. And with that being said, thank you.